Hi there, welcome to the webinar. My name is Phillip Jackson and I am the Chief Commerce Officer at Something Digital, and we are a builder of e-commerce sites and a growth partner, and we utilize technology stacks and technology partnerships to help bring success and growth to our customers. And so I'm thrilled today to taking part in helping host this webinar to talk about a study that I think is going to have tremendous impact for my customers, and I think it'll have tremendous impact for you and your business. Today we're talking about the state of customer experience, and we are talking about a study that was performed with the integrated growth commerce stack, and that stack is comprised of Nosto, Klaviyo, and Yotpo. And today we have three brilliant minds to come and join us to talk about this study and how it pertains to you and your business, and how you can use the data and the insights that were found to better connect with your customers. So I'll let them introduce themselves. Why don't we start with you, Olivia, over at Yotpo?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Olivia and I'm the product marketing manager here at Yotpo. A little bit about Yotpo. We're an e-commerce marketing platform, and we help forward-thinking brands from Steve Madden to Movement Watches all accelerate their direct-to-consumer growth. And how do we do this? We have a multitude of solutions. So everything from reviews to loyalty, SMS marketing, and more, all combined in a single platform approach.
Great. Jan, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Jan with Nosto. I'm the GM for North America. So anything commercials related, that's me. More importantly, I do have a customer success background, so I'm excited to see a bunch of folks who I've actually worked with on the account management CSM side previously. For those of you who don't know what Nosto is, we're a standalone personalization platform to make sure that you can deliver unique experiences to each individual customer. So individual content, individual products, individual offers. Yeah, and super excited to see Nosto, Klaviyo, and Yotpo just come together and deliver kind of a stack experience to our customers.
Great, thanks, Jan. And Jake.
Hey, I'm Jake. I work for Klaviyo. I lead product marketing here. Hopefully everyone's heard of Klaviyo by now, but if not, we offer marketing tools for e-commerce businesses. We serve over 30,000 of them right now and growing. And we help people create, nurture, and grow relationships with their customers and prospects to help the brands grow through email, SMS, mobile apps, and of course, forms and on-site personalization.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us. In this report, if you want to get a copy of the report yourself and you're watching this webinar and you don't have it in front of you, highly recommend that you get that. You can get it by following the link that you received for this webinar for the consumer survey for the state of customer experience. The overview of the report is that 1,100 consumers were surveyed over a period of 12 months, and that survey did an NPS with 50 top direct-to-consumer brands, and they asked questions to the consumers and open ends to find out sort of what were the things that were moving the needle to make them purchase from those brands, and how was the overall experience. It's quite in-depth. And we're in particular, we're finding that consumer expectations are ever rising, and a lot of brands are finding that they're having to rise to meet the level of expectation from customers. So I thought we would start first of all that the top expectation now is that all brands are omni-channel, and so customers expect to be able to engage with brands in lots of different mediums. The first, I think, is the top in the survey was 53% said that they interact most with brands on websites, and but of that 53%, the other 47 was split up pretty evenly across other channels, with the second being in-store and email being 12%. I thought I'd kick this off, Jake, with your thoughts about how does this data hint at email being an underutilized channel, or does it hint more towards the consumer mindset just being fixed on I engage with digital brands digitally? Or what would your takeaway be?
To be honest, I was shocked that it was actually 53% of, well, actually, sorry. I'm not surprised that people engage most commonly on a website with a brand, because that's where you do all your shopping, right? So literally 100% of your customers have interacted with you on your website. Fair to say if you sell online. But I think it's also fair to say that not 100% of your customers interact with all the different places because they don't want to. That's not the purpose of all the other channels. The purpose of the other channels are to, as I mentioned earlier, nurture relationships, send value, offer things that your customers and prospects find interesting, and to give it to them through a medium that they choose to receive that information. The purpose of a website is something entirely different. It's to communicate what value you have to offer and to give them an opportunity to transact to get that value. So this doesn't surprise me at all. I think a lot of it has to do with where a consumer is in the funnel, where they're at in terms of thinking about how they interact with your brand, and then of course, what they prefer. I will tell you right now that my parents don't want to text with your brand. It's not happening. My sister might. And so obviously they're not going to be in that category. They just have different preferences and they have different relationships with different brands.
I found another interesting data point was that a consumer, when asked, said that they feel like most brands, 57%, provide a seamless experience across multiple channels. This is not statistically significant, but anecdotally, I would say that 100% of the brands that we work with at Something Digital would say they would like to do a better job at interacting with customers seamlessly across different channels. So this feels like a very optimistic number on the part of the consumer. In kind of getting down a little bit, we also found that there was data around preference where promotions and discounts were being offered. The top was email. Jake, I'm sure we could loop you into a thought about email, but I thought maybe we could take a little bit of a different angle on this, which is customers want to receive discounts and promotions over emails, and but then we saw it split up between, that was 65% of respondents. 7%, however, said that they'd rather, they'd prefer it to come through pop-ups. So that's very last place. I always kind of think about how did they get on the email list in the first place? Probably through a pop-up. So I'm curious, Jan, in all of the work that you do in personalization and testing hypotheses with Nosto, what are the kinds of things that retailers could be using, or what kinds of data could they be gathering to better interact with the customer so that they can meet this expectation on a more personal level for one customer versus the next, rather than having sort of a blanket approach?
Sure. So I think we definitely need to differentiate what people want and what they react to. So I think pop-ups is a great example where if you ask the folks here in this panel, we'll probably say it's fairly annoying, but if you then see kind of the statistics behind the scene, it definitely works. And I think there's some kind of maturity play here. If you talk to a very early stage customer, you might want to go with just a dual tap approach. So hitting customers the first time and then perhaps do an exit intent, and obviously cookie the user so you don't train them to become just looking for discounts. Then I think there's a lot of room to grow, to kind of have discounting or couponing almost as a standalone discipline. I think any e-com director will probably be putting a lot of effort into this. And what we want to do is we want to minimize unnecessary discounts. I think that's the goal. And what you can do nowadays is look at folks' discount affinity. Do they actually react to red prices or not? So obviously what you then can do is suppress any discount for folks who are ready to pay full price. Then you can take it one step further still, look at folks who have a specific category affinity, who are hesitant. So again, reducing the number of unnecessary discounts given. Of course, you want to make sure that you use one-time coupons as opposed to those that could be shared. And then finally, I think this comes down to the size of your brand and your website. There's definitely already tools out there that do automated discounting based on things like discount affinity and so on, where the tool just decides what discount. Is it a buy one get one free? Is it some kind of loyalty discount? How high should it be to get a conversion happen? So it's kind of moving towards full automation on that side as well.
I think it's really interesting that there's I've heard a lot of folks talk about discount fatigue. I feel like very few have talked about having discount fatigue, which is what I have. I'm fatigued over people talking about consumers being fatigued over discounts. Olivia, this really interesting data point here, when we surveyed in this study, consumers, when asked what helps them make a purchase, when framed in that way, the overwhelming majority, 76%, said reviews was the number one thing, or most of them said reviews factored into making a purchase decision, which took the number one spot by volume over discounts being at 70%. In the third place is photos, and in fourth place, or sort of tied for fourth place, was word of mouth and loyalty points. It seems to me like a platform like Yotpo, which is focused around generating user-generated content for social proof, solves most of those. What are some of the findings that you found, in the data with your customers at Yotpo that might support this feedback from consumers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we're looking at consumers and they're making purchase decisions, they are actually swaying towards social proof, like I said, as one of the most impactful things causing them to actually make a purchase decision. So for example, 77% of shoppers actually prefer those customer photos over those professional ones. They want to see what real people look like in the products in real life. And 98% of consumers are now seeking out reviews to make those informed decisions. And I think one of the reasons is we trust other people. It's all well and good for a brand to say how great the pair of shoes are, but when you can read reviews from other consumers telling you just how fantastic they were, what the fit was like, this is all the information that you need to feel confident in making that purchase decision. So, when we're looking at the data, it really doesn't surprise me. I think we're all consumers and we all can relate to that. And knowing that other people love the product can really encourage you to then make that purchase and sort of make that next step.
I'm curious, there might be other places other than a website to feature this kind of content. Jake, can user-generated content be used outside of the .com site to try to foster something like, say, repeat purchase or retention? I'm setting you up.
It's like a juicy meatball coming my way right there.
The perfect spiral. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Of course, right. Actually, something to share that could be useful for other people. It's a little bit more like foundational marketing theory stuff, but I think it ties a lot of this together. If people are not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they should just go look at that right away. But basically, Maslow was a philosopher that was describing what people need along their lives to feel safe and comfortable enough to truly be themselves. And the first of those things was food and shelter and water. And the second of those things was belonging. And that is an exceptionally important insight to understand, that people just want to feel like they're not alone. And they'll go to very extreme ends to do that. The second thing that people should do, if they haven't done already, is to read Influence by Robert Cialdini. He wrote this, I think, in '84, and he was like the father of social proof. I think he coined the term in that book. The short answer is, if you can create content using whatever platform, Yotpo or otherwise, that helps you capture other people who are in this tribe, in this network of people who connect with your brand, and you can give it to other people who are not yet part of that tribe, you can both demonstrate social proof and invite them to belong, which is a very powerful combination. So the question then becomes, mechanically, how do I do this? There's really, in my opinion, there's three really good ways to do this. The first is actually, we were talking before about discounts and forms. First of all, little soapbox moment, that consumers want coupons in certain places, like, I don't care. That does not matter to us as marketers. Coupons serve as a function, which is to help us to achieve certain marketing outcomes. And so as marketers, we need to think about what is the outcome we want and what are we willing to pay for that. Adhering to when people want coupons is like, I have a 4-year-old who always wants to have a treat and never wants to listen. And it's like, sorry, dude, Treats are to help reinforce certain behaviors. And so if you do that, you will get them, right? Same deal. So if you think about a form, sure, you can offer a discount if you want, that's great. But what else could you do? You could literally say, join our community, and you could show pictures of people that are part of the brand that are customers of yours. And people will do that. It will work. You could invite them to, whatever, I don't have to go to a diatribe. There's many, many ways to get people to be part of your brand and to create a new relationship without paying for it. So that's one. Two, to nurture the relationship, right? You can include social proof into your email whenever you send it. I tell people all the time, the anatomy of a good email always has social proof at the bottom, because it helps people revalidate that feeling that they have because you've been so compelling at the top that, like, yeah, I do want this. Oh, look, other people have wanted it too. Belonging, I will want that too. So you could do it there. Of course, you could do it on your website. You could put it in your advertisements. I mean, like, it's just content. And then the question is, how do you use that content to build, nurture, and convert relationships such that you can, you know, have an owned network of people that you can communicate with to grow your brand?
That's brilliant. When you think about all the places that you might engage with your customer, there are so very many of them now. I think when we talk about omni-channel, the sort of omni-channel 5 years ago was brick and mortar and retail and marketplace and website, but it's become, you know, SMS and omni-channel's definition is like pretty much anywhere your customer is engaging with you and making a purchase decision. One of those places in particular that's probably high value for your brand, or what you might perceive to be high value for your brand, might be your homepage on your website. And I think your homepage is probably the most standout, you know, different place on your website, is in that it communicates a lot of messages that aren't just make a purchase decision of this product. There's usually brand, there's usually some sort of, yeah, the brand promise. We see a lot of social impact or ideology that's being put on brand homepages now. I'm curious, when we look at the data from the study, we see that 58% of consumers say that they feel that content on the brand's homepages are relevant to them. Jan, do you believe that that's because we're just doing such a phenomenal job at you know, at crafting more personal experiences, or is there something else at play here?
I mean, I think we are getting better at personalizing the website and the homepage in particular, but I still think it's long ways to go. So just to compare it to what we do in email, right? In email, we probably do things like welcome series, right? So there's a whole welcoming message and a cadence behind that. We do CLV-based targeting, we do life cycle, we do things like brand affinity, category affinity. So there's so many campaigns that we do offsite that essentially you could just run on-site as well. And I think when I work with D2C brands, they're quite adept at taking that same approach and bringing it to the website. And what I see quite often, I think you've already mentioned it, but you start for a new customer, a new user, you would show what the brand is all about, so mission, vision, values. You would actually highlight social proof. You might have our infamous welcome pop-up as well. And then once there's a conversion, you move to a different experience, which is maybe more about loyalty, then showing the newest products. So you just change the content accordingly. So I think even if you don't have huge inventory, you don't perhaps even have a bunch of different shopping personas, right? I think male versus female, right? The D2C sometimes are very, very narrow focused. You can do so much around life cycle and CLV. And I think that's what we're seeing play out now.
It's interesting too, when you talk about life cycle, I believe that there's probably a misconception that the customer purchase life cycle starts somewhere that isn't just, you know, somewhere down the purchase decision funnel. We would love for everyone to come in through a common front door, right?
Yes.
But that's not how the world actually works. Believe it or not, you know, Saks Fifth Avenue has like 5 entrances, and depending on which one you go into, you have a different experience. Your website's very similar. I'm curious, you know, how much social proof, Olivia, are brand marketers and putting into other places beyond just the product detail page? Are there more opportunities and more places that become sort of that hero entrance moment for someone who's unfamiliar with the product or the brand?
Yeah, definitely. And what you're saying about people entering from so many different places, it's true. And it's also not linear. It's not like they'll enter once. Sometimes they enter a few times before they actually make the purchase. So one of the most important things is to ensure a consistent buyer experience across each of those channels, whether it's your email, whether it's social, whether it's search. They should all work together and complement one another to be able to make a really consistent experience and a magical experience for your customers. So what we recommend is that you implement your social proof in each of these different channels, because then you can slowly build that trust through each of the different touch points that you have. It's that constant validation. And then when they do arrive on your website, whether that is your homepage or directly onto a product page, you've already done a lot of the upfront work to build that trust. So definitely incorporating it through that entire journey is important. And then, yeah, back to that homepage. When they land on the homepage, that's when they can see your brand. And the best thing to do there is to really showcase your brand through your community, because at the end of the day, they're one of the best representations of your brand. So if you can showcase photos of them, reviews, that's a great place then to land. And you're bringing them into the community straight away.
There's an interesting thing there that as you were talking, it sort of sparked something in my brain. We don't actually own outside, right? There's a lot of owned channels that we have where we control the message, but we don't actually own the first touch of someone's awareness of the brand most times. It doesn't always happen on, an Instagram ad that you have the perfect creative on. So I'm curious, Jake, we had talked, I think, in the pre-show before we started recording this webinar. There's this idea that customers follow a path that you've determined is a little antiquated, right?
Yeah, it's funny. As we were just talking right now, I was thinking about, I've had the opportunity, the fortune to work with a lot of customers on problems like this. How do we stitch this together that we can tell our story in a sort of manageable, measurable, and effective way? Because as marketers, what we want to do is be able to influence stuff, but we don't want to get in the way, right? And so that's a really tough thing to balance. So there's a tactical exercise that we've all done. I'll share with you guys today, like free inside look. That's been really effective. The first thing that you do is you write down the primary steps of the funnel that every single consumer goes through. So what is that? Awareness, right, of your brand. In consideration, they're curious about buying. Research, they come to your site. Try or buy, so depending on what you offer, right, they like literally buy the thing, and then they use it, and if you're good, they'll recommend it. That's it. There's no more. This is very simple. It's just those things. And then for each of those things, you should write down where do they do that. So for example, awareness could have a long list of places, and try or buy could have one place, right, depending on where you sell. And then you should write what are they supposed to take away from that, and what's next. If you make that map, you will create a sort of like webbed ideal customer journey, each step of which is measurable, each moment of which will help you think through the next step so you can come up with the right content. So whether it's appropriate at this moment to include social proof or to simply provide a value statement, you will be able to think that through, and you will understand how that connects together and helps you build a funnel that you can measure and influence without getting in the way. And at the end of the day, what it will help you do is understand that, to your point, Philip, we don't own every single touch point, but we can influence every touch point. And the more we influence, the more percentage of the touch points that exist we can actually own. And the more that you actually own, the greater influence you can have and the less you have to spend to drive results for yourself. And that is the mark of successful, lasting brands, when they have an owned network of touch points across the channels that they don't have to overpay for and can grow predictably. Like, that's the magic. That's all it is. And it starts with that primary exercise, which stitches all the stuff we're talking about together.
Huh. That's if for nothing else, that's the most actionable insight I think that you can have, which is uh, always thinking about what the next step should be.
Yes.
And we at Something Digital have something that we created called a maturity model, which was meant for our own internal customers to be able to like identify what they are currently working on and does that align with their business's maturity practices and what the next step should be. It's been very successful for our customers, and we've productized it into something called Bullseye for sort of more mass market consumption. Everybody wants to know what their next step should be, and in particular, in looking at next steps, a lot of that comes down to sort of feature and functionality. Everybody wants to know what the next thing they should be implementing on their e-commerce site should be.
But it has to have a purpose, right? It has to have like a meaning, some reason you're doing it.
Yeah, there's no reason to have live chat on your site if you don't know what the purpose.
Right.
Everybody wants a purchase decision, right? But live chat might not actually stoke the purchase decision if you haven't implemented it as such. It could contribute for sure. Interestingly enough, the study actually teases some of that out in that 63% of consumers say they're more likely to purchase from a brand who features social media content or reviews on their site. I think that's a no-brainer. But the similar number answered 65% say that they want live chat on the site. Does Olivia, just as an aside, do you believe that that's because for all of our digital enablement, we're sort of just starving for more human connection? Is that what we need?
Arriving on a website, you don't get that physical, human social interaction unless you incorporate these different types of technologies, whether it is social proof, whether it is a live chat, even referrals, so you can actually refer a friend afterwards. I think all of these different technologies help to bring that social aspect of shopping to the online world. So bringing the offline online.
That's fantastic. I'm always trying to find, like, I walk around Whole Foods and I look where the cool people are shopping, and that's the aisle I want to go down.
Exactly.
I think
How much time do you spend at home?
Like that.
I just look for people with hair like mine, and then yeah. What are they buying? That's what I want to know. Someone with a big floppy hat. That's whatever organic honey they're consuming. I need some more of that.
See, belonging. We're always doing it all the time.
That's really what it comes down to, for sure. I'm curious, when you're looking at how frequently consumers want to be engaged with, there's a sense that consumers don't really know. In the study, it says only 6% said daily. There's a very long list of brands who love to email me daily. The sort of remainder is 44%. The majority say, I don't want to be contacted that often. What's the right cadence for sort of speaking to your customer, and what's the right messaging for that cadence?
Can I take this one?
Question. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. The answer is give them value. If you're sending crap that no one cares about receiving, which most people's default stance is I don't care, right? That's like a truism in marketing. Then, like, of course they don't want to hear from you, and they'll say not often. Which I don't know if that's like once a year or once a decade or once in an hour. I have no idea. Most people, though, what I see for marketers that have a sort of like messaging strategy that kind of has fallen to the wayside, it's because they're thinking in calendars, they're thinking tactically from a marketer's execution standpoint, and they're not thinking about how do I develop a message, how do I develop a position in someone's mind and demonstrate value. If you're always thinking about how do I give value to people, here's what will end up happening. Number one, you're going to want to build different audiences, different groups of people, because they value different things. Probably by where they're at in the relationship with their brand, but also maybe psychographically what you know about them. The most simple example is, Olivia brought up shoes earlier. Men and women buy different shoes because they have different feet, right? And so you might send them different things. As you start to think that way, the frequency that you can message someone goes up, actually, because what ends up happening is that they're excited to hear from you. So an example, there's a brand that we work with. I think it's Death Wish Coffee. I have to get the exact name, but they're the coolest. All of their email, actually, I think the split is 80 or 90% of their messaging is cool stuff that their customers will care about, and 10 or 20% of the year are asking them to buy something. And the yield is they have like 60% open rates. They have been more than doubling every year. They're my favorite metric of businesses is revenue per employee. Theirs is off the chart. Why? Because they deliver value. And when you deliver value, people want to keep receiving it. And when you keep delivering it and they keep receiving it, they keep reading it. And when they keep reading it, you have a stronger position in their mind. And then when they want to find all the other guys with cool hair and they're ready to buy some coffee, where do they go? Back to the place in their mind to buy, really good coffee. And so it's kind of like classic branding. Just deliver value, deliver value, deliver value. And if you are, people will engage and you can deliver as frequently as you have value to give.
There's an interesting side journey to that I think, Jan, you might want to weigh in on, which is no one person is exactly like another. And so as marketers, we have the ability to hone content for a specific audience now and create it, in a more one-to-one fashion. If you look in the study, we see outside of social media content, written articles or ebooks, interactive landing pages, video series, like any sort of multimedia branded content seems to be something that is being craved by a consumer at the moment. Certainly, probably not every piece of content that you create is right for everybody. How do you go about, is there some low-hanging fruit or a means of delivering the right message to the right consumer at the right time?
Yeah, I think, again, this ties back to what we discussed earlier. So essentially all of the targeting options that you have in email, you essentially now have on site. So again, the low-hanging fruit, even if you don't have different shopping personas, is CLV and life cycle. That's just something you should do right out of the gate. But then also things like, let's say, brand affinity, category affinity. So you can easily deliver a dynamic banner on the site specifically for someone who's interested in shoes as opposed to a pair of jeans, or any other category, gender-based targeting, if you want, and affinities. I think what's key here is that you want to use contextual data clues as much as you can. So I think we've kind of moved on a little bit from pure transactional, which gets somewhat stale very quickly, to then using what's happening in the moment. And I always use the same example of why this is important. Let's say if Jake is looking for a gift for his girlfriend, wife, whatever, then you should be showing female products to Jake, right? So just also setting the new expectations that you want to use the latest and greatest and contextual data clues. And if that interest then wanes, you want to make sure that customers also put back into, let's call it, the generic buckets. And there's some kind of data decay modeling as part of that experience. But again, start by looking what you're currently doing with email and just transferring that to on-site for sure.
That's amazing. I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of mutual value and sort of a cyclical nature to learning from one channel and applying that learning to another channel. I think that is a huge opportunity area for a lot of brands that we work with at Something Digital, because I think we tend to think very siloed about the way that a customer behaves in one channel and not in the way that the whole journey might affect another part of the channel.
Yes. I agree. I actually, I'm going to be a bad person right now. I actually need to step off, but I want to say two quick things. Number one, the comment before about how every one of our customers is different, could not agree more. I actually I write little mini diatribes and soapboxy things on my LinkedIn account, and I literally wrote one about that yesterday. So could not agree more. And the second thing is, yeah, exactly what both you, Philip, and Jan were saying, understanding that it's the same person who's across multiple devices, who's perhaps in a different state of mind at a given time is so important. That's why that journey is so important, because then you get away from what's my ROI of this channel versus is my mix, is the experience that I'm creating, building great relationships and allowing me to build a sustainable business, I think is all the magic. So as a shout out to everyone on this panel, please make sure, marketers out there, please make sure you think about the experience you want. You choose vendors that can help you with each little piece of that and stitch together such that you have a central understanding of who your customer is and can deliver the right experiences to build the journey that you need so that you can really create and own amazing relationships with your customers and prospects. Please.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Jake. I'm sorry that we're going to lose you here, but
Sorry.
what a brilliant way to go out. That was a mic
Yeah,
drop for sure.
you guys rock. We got to do this all the time, all the time.
Yeah. And we'll direct any questions that you have at, during the webinar. I see some already coming in. We'll direct any questions that Klaviyo or Jake might be able to weigh in on to him after the fact. So make sure you get those in and send them.
Yeah,
you can use.
I'll just put it out there. If you guys want to forward or anyone wants to email me directly, it's jake.cohen@klaviyo.com. Flood me. My favorite thing to do is to talk to people.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
Okay.
In continuing with one of the other data points, and then we'll turn it over to questions here, just to be respectful of time because it's just been so valuable. Everyone's trying to increase reach. We all want to speak more directly to our customers or to our prospects. If you know, rising customer acquisition costs are becoming prohibitively expensive on social channels, what are other ways, Olivia, that we can maximize our reach in social media and maybe put what is the kind of interaction that we are having there meaningfully into other channels to make it more worthwhile to make that investment? Or what are some other interesting ways of maximizing reach that maybe we hadn't thought about yet?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of other ways to maximize reach, you have social, you have search. Another way is to actually just leverage your community and ask them, you know, they will have friends out there. They all have people that, you know, are very similar to your target audience. So one great way that we see brands maximizing reach through word of mouth marketing is through referrals. And so after someone leaves a 5-star review, that's a great time to ask someone to leave a referral. That's a happy customer who really enjoys your product, has good things to say about it already. So why not ask them to do a referral to one of their friends, someone in their network? So that's a great way we see people extending their reach through a different kind of channel. And they can do that on their website, like I said, after they leave a review. There's many different touch points and when you can ask for that.
We actually have some questions coming in that are sort of in that vein. So I thought just for the sake of time, and you know, we have about 7 or 8 minutes here. I want to make sure that we do have time for those questions. If you do have questions, make sure that you get them into that box in the GoToWebinar panel that says Q&A. You can submit them there, and if we don't have time to get to the questions, then that's totally okay. We'll come back to them. One of the questions had to do with social proof. If you're looking to, you know, get started and invest in a social strategy that does provide, you know, reusing or repurposing user-generated content, is there a right way to go about that? Is there a right way to make that investment? And what sort of channels can you look to proliferate or, you know, put that information or syndicate that information out into outside of just maybe the homepage on your website?
Yeah, so when you're looking to build out your strategy, the first thing is to look at what are your products and what do your customers want to know about your products. So one way in which you can get a little bit smarter about the types of content you're collecting is actually asking your customers specific questions, not just how did you find the shoes, but, you know, what is your shoe size? How did you find the fit of the shoes? That then becomes far more useful information to display on your site and for your shoppers to actually read. This helps them to make better decisions about what size they purchase. This helps them to actually have more confidence in their purchase decision and ultimately be happier with whatever decision they make. So that's one way, is actually looking at what your products are and what sort of things people want to know. And then maximizing the value. I've sort of spoken about it already, but multiplying the value of these reviews by putting them into all of the different channels that are relevant. So for example, if you sell in retailers, you can syndicate your review content to the different retailers that you sell in so that your social proof is in every different place where your consumers are looking to make purchases. Same on Instagram. You can put that social proof in the Instagram. We see it very creative ways, whether that's using Instagram stories. We even have social proof in the tube, in the subway. Sorry, I'm British. There's ads with social proof on it. You can get very creative about how you actually leverage this and showcase it in front of your customers or potential customers to build that trust and credibility.
Maybe I'll add one as well, Philip, here. So
please, yeah.
There's these secondary effects as well. So if you do all that hard labor here with Yotpo collecting all those reviews, it kind of flows into the other tools. Obviously, Jake has now dropped the mic, so he won't be speaking about his part, but certainly for Nosto, when we take in the signals from Yotpo, we can, for example, resort the collection pages, the category pages based on the reviews. We can suppress products that get a very bad rating, so we don't show them in our product recommendations. We can test UGC photography as opposed to stock images in our recs and the collection pages and so on. So there's these secondary best of breed effects, and it's also kind of one of the reasons why we partner, because there's these, yeah, I hate to say it, but synergy effects as well.
I thought we were going to make through a whole webinar without using the word synergy. We almost did.
Yeah.
What are some, this is another question that just came in, what are some concrete examples of how e-commerce sites are personalizing the content on their home pages? So back to this idea of the homepage, are there specific brands, Jan, that you can think of that are doing this better than others?
Yeah,
or specific concepts maybe?
Yeah, I've seen the content personalization we used from very tactical tactics as well as strategy. So on the tactical side, I've seen it be used for smarter discounting. Again, we're kind of coming back to the discounting. Obviously, we shouldn't be doing it, but this is one way to do it smarter. So identifying new customers, identifying high value customers, and so on. So purely use it to deliver smarter discounting. Then I've definitely seen it to take over hero banners. Just recently, a lot of US retailers for Canada Day, they just switched over the hero banner, but only for folks geolocation in Canada. I see a lot around category affinity because it's something you pick up very, very quickly. It's a signal that's valid. So usually it's not the hero banner, but it's one of the lower banners where you start changing the content. And one thing that I've seen was a retail that sells suits, and they had an affinity set up for business, and then one for weddings, right? If you buy a wedding suit, it looks a little bit different, and that just makes sense, right? If you're in the market for a wedding suit, it's just something very different than a business suit, and it worked well.
Olivia, any ideas of sort of state-of-the-art experiences that you've seen on homepages?
Yeah, I love Wellness and what they do on their homepage. They are incredible at bringing their community to the forefront, really highlighting it. And one thing that they've been doing recently is collecting videos of their customers. And I think that's a really great way to actually bring the products to life through something a little bit more dynamic, through something that we want to engage with. And so absolutely loving that. And being able to just listen, and when you're buying supplements, Love Wellness is a female supplements company, if you didn't know. And so when you're buying supplements, it's about feeling safe and it's about feeling comfortable with that purchase. And so listening to videos of other females talking about it, it gives you that sort of safe space. So I think they're really great at inviting people in and building that. So I think that they've done a phenomenal job on their homepage.
Yeah, that's great. I personally, I also love the way that wellness companies are approaching the relationship with their customer. I think of one, Care, who I am a customer that I've bought personalized vitamin packs from them or supplement packs from them, and the very first question that they ask you in a quiz is how how do you sit, like what is your feeling about vitamins and supplements? Do you feel like you are a true believer, or are you kind of a skeptic? And if you say you're a skeptic, will they prioritize all of the FDA double-blind case studies that prove that these things are valuable? And if you're a true believer, then they talk about quality and they talk about sourcing of the ingredients and how they own the supply chain. And I think that that is at its basest, and I think we're sort of out of time, and we'll leave it here. At its most basic, this is the level on which customers expect you to be able to engage with them in 2020. And you can only do those sorts of things by having a marketing technology stack that's integrated, that understands the full journey of the customer. And it's my true belief that the integrated commerce growth stack with Yotpo, Nosto, and Klaviyo does provide that. And so I believe that we probably have a lot of true believers in the integrated commerce growth stack that are watching this right now. If you do have other questions, we didn't get to yours. Apologies, we're out of time, but we'd love to go ahead and answer them. So please pop them in the Q&A before you get out of this webinar, and we'll follow up and make sure that every question is answered. Do really appreciate. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. Thank you all for paying attention and giving up part of your workday for this. This is fantastic. If you do want a copy of the report, you can get it, and that's available over at Nosto, and it'll be available for you to download and to share in your organization. But yeah, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Philip.
Chatting. Bye.